I wanted to review just one game, but somehow I ended up playing 12. Well, 5 were demos, and they were all kind of the same game, but also not. Confused? Yeah, me too. Stick around because this review spun out of control, and it all started with a game called Engine Evolution. Before you can race, you have to enter your birthday, your gender, and agree to a privacy policy. Why? No idea. I 100% recommend that you just make something up because why does a video game by a solo developer require this information? If it explains it in the privacy policy, guess what? No one reads that. Once that's done, you'll pick some graphic settings, choose a name, color, race number, and country. Then you set how hard you want the game to be, like turning on auto braking or racing lines, and boom, you're ready to go. It sounds like a lot, but it really only takes a few minutes. After that, you'll see a few ways to race. Pick a vehicle, hit race, and the game puts you into an online match with others who pick the same kind of ride. Or you can race against AI, practice laps alone, or make a custom lobby to race with your friends. Joining a friend is a little odd in this game. There's no party system like in other games. You can make a custom race for friends, but that's about it. If your buddy jumps into a random race, there's no button to just join them. So you can both pick quick race in hopes that you land in the same lobby, but it's not guaranteed. Then again, with the number of people playing, you might actually pull it off. But more on that later. The game's goal is simple. Race. There are no big tournaments or fancy storylines. Each race starts right after the last one, and they usually last about 2 or 3 laps. That's it. Just race and try to win. The controls are super easy to learn. I usually play games with a mouse and keyboard when I'm reviewing, but for racing games, I like using a controller. My Xbox One controller worked great while racing. Just a heads up though, you will need a mouse and keyboard for the menus. If you prefer using a keyboard for racing, that works fine too. Engine Evolution gives you daily missions. You can complete them by racing, earning XP, and placing in the top 5. You can customize your vehicle, your rider, and your profile to make things feel a little bit more personal. There's also a tech tree where you can unlock new vehicles as you level up. That part's pretty fun, but beyond that, there's not a ton of stuff to do. There are no big championships to win, no trophies, and no story to follow. If you're not into chasing achievements or unlocking new rides, it might feel a little repetitive after a while. The fun you get from this game really depends on what you're looking for. If you just want to hop in, race a few laps, and have a good time, then it'll probably be fun for you. But since there's not much to do beyond that, most people probably won't keep coming back. With so many other free or cheap racing games that offer more and have bigger player communities, Engine Evolution just isn't going to be a popular option. Since I've talked about the player base a couple of times now, it's probably time to explain why I ended up reviewing 12 different games even though I've mostly talked about one, and why the number of players keeps coming up. My original plan was to review Engine Evolution 2023 since it had been on my wishlist for a while. But once I started playing, I realized there wasn't going to be enough content for a full video. So I checked out the developers page on Steam and saw a bunch of other Engine Evolution games and demos. I thought, cool, I'll just install these and review the whole series. That's when things started to get weird. Each time I launched a new game, it felt like I was just opening the same game again. There were small differences, like Formula Evolution had its own title screen and tech tree just for Formula-style vehicles, but everything else was the same. Even when I clicked on Race, I was in a lobby with the same people I had seen in Engine Evolution 2023. The same thing happened when I tried Engine Evolution 2021 and 2022. Some of the demos, Motocross Evolution 2025, Kart Evolution 2025, and Hypercar Evolution 2025, had slightly different tech trees and titles, but everything else worked exactly the same. So I did more digging and I found something interesting on the developer's website. In the FAQ, there's a question about why there are so many versions of the game. The answer says, quote, "All versions share the same database and anything you unlock, purchase in EE 2021 will be shared into EE 2022. Releasing a new version of the game helps me explain new features to the player base and properly advertise them." So that explains why everything feels connected, because it is. But I've got some thoughts on that, which I'll get to in a minute. First, let's finally talk about the player numbers. Because each version is a separate download on Steam, the Steam API tracks them like they're different games. That means that the player count changes depending on which version you're looking at. But after launching any version of the game, you can click Other and see how many people are online and where they're from. And no matter where you check, the numbers aren't great. In the US, I only saw 2 players online. With the EU included, that number went up to 58. But those players are spread out across all different versions of the game and the demos, which may or may not allow you to access the same lobbies. So whichever game you pick, there are likely fewer than you're expecting. Even though all of that is a bit confusing, Engine Evolution still has some fun things going for it. The vehicles, no matter which version you play, look really good. I've never played a game where I drove old cars and motorcycles like these before, and even though they might look slow, the racing didn't feel that way. While the tracks are relatively flat, the environment all around looks very nice. The graphics aren't mind-blowing, but they're still better than a lot of other indie racing games out there. Now, in online racing games, there's always someone who will crash into you, either because they're new and not very good, or because they have the mentality of, if I can't win, neither can you. This game is no exception, but the cool part? If someone crashes into you, they usually crash too. I think that's on purpose so people don't try to ruin races. Of course, some still hit you, but it seems like it does help to stop that behavior. Another smart feature is what happens when you lap someone. They turn into a ghost, which means they can't crash into you. That's great because getting knocked out of first place by someone in last place is the worst. There are, however, some problems with this game that can't really be ignored. Let's start with a couple of the small ones before we get into the big stuff. First, the vehicle physics feel off. It's not realistic, but it's not arcade style either. It's just strange. For example, tapping a wall slightly makes your wheels pop off, forcing a reset. Or if you hit a curb while turning, your car might launch into the air. Braking is inconsistent too. Sometimes letting off the gas is enough, and other times the brakes feel useless. There's no way to report or block people in the game. Instead, and I'm not going to read this word for word, but the developer wants you to submit a screenshot and video with the person's name and what they are doing, and an admin will take a look at it. He goes on to say that the admins are busy with school and jobs. Well, guess what? So are the people playing your game. And if the choice is to take time out of their day to submit a report to someone who may or may not deal with the situation, they're likely just going to go play a different game. I know I would. And there's no way to chat with other players. The controls claim F5 through F8 let you say things like sorry or good race, but they never worked for me. This means that you can't easily tell other racers you didn't mean to bump them or give a quick GG at the end. Now on to the biggest issue. The whole series of games being released as separate downloads on Steam. I completely disagree with the developer's reason for doing this. I've got nearly 27 gigabytes of what is basically the same 2.24 gigabyte game on my computer. The store pages don't clearly explain what each version is or why you should pick one over the others. And since everything runs on the same database, even the demos, there's no reason this couldn't be one game. Steam supports updates, betas, test versions. Those tools exist for a reason. And the real reason this was done? The developer says it plainly. Quote, "The problem was that the game was dead and there was no way out of that situation. I figured out the only solution was to release a new Steam page with players keeping all their stuff. That way I will get exposure again." That's not about explaining new features, that's about tricking people. I get that this is an indie student game, but if that's the case, why try to game the system? If any other developer did this, it would still feel dishonest and I would still have a problem with it. This is not only bad design, but it feels like a sneaky way to get people to play your game, which is ultimately going to kill trust with your player base. I probably said enough on that topic, so let's shift gears and end on a positive note. Despite the complaints and frustrations I've mentioned, I genuinely had fun playing this game. In races where everyone was driving clean and focused on competing, it was actually a great experience. Trading positions, dodging wrecks, and fighting for first place felt rewarding. If you've played the Super Woden GP games, you know it's not just about racing, it's about learning the physics and mastering the handling. That's what makes Engine Evolution enjoyable too. The unusual vehicles and the challenge of adapting to their quirks keeps things interesting. Would I come back and play it all the time? No, probably not. But I wouldn't rule it out completely either. It could be a fun game to mess around with friends either online or at a LAN party. Racing against AI or jumping into a random lobby still has its moments. But in the end, there are other racing games out there, both free and paid, that offer a better all-around experience. And those are the ones I'm more likely to spend my time with. While there's some fun to be had in Engine Evolution, it doesn't really stand out in the world of racing games. With so many versions that all feel exactly the same, it's tough to recommend any of them, unless you're just looking for something different and have already played everything else. That's why the Engine Evolution games get a 4 out of 10, placing them in C tier. If you're thinking about trying any of the Engine Evolution games, I've added links to the store page in the description. If you like this video or agree with the C tier rating, hit that like button. If you have a free-to-play game that you'd like me to review, or if you plan to play the Engine Evolution games, let me know down in the comments. Also, don't forget to click the video link on your screen, because the next game might be your new favorite.